Today we're going to be taking a look at a piece of actual e-waste and seeing if it can still run modern games on it. I found this laptop in the literal garbage and couldn't pass up the opportunity to abuse it for content. So let's see what exactly I ended up with. Turns out this is the HP 2000. It had a bunch of different versions and ours is nothing remarkable. It has an i3-2328M, a single stick of 4GB of DDR3, 500GB of storage running at 5400 RPM, but today we're going to be focusing on the graphics. This laptop has the world-renowned Intel HD 3000 integrated graphics processor. It was used in many laptop and desktop PCs, and I want to see how well it still holds up. But before that, I'm going to take it apart and clean it out, because this laptop needs all the help it can get. And there's our singular 4GB stick of RAM. Here's the hard drive. This is the one I actually put in. It runs at 7200 RPM, so it's better than the crappier one that I initially found it with. Got a screw right there. Just trying to pry it apart. This was not an easy laptop to take apart, but I don't think it's really meant for you to strip it down to the motherboard. Hey, there we go. Where did this, what the fuck? Guys, I don't think this is gonna go back together. Oh, that cable looks very unhealthy. Oh. We finally have it after wrestling with this thing for like a half hour. Can it run games? I don't know. We're gonna find out. Look at how disgusting that is. I don't know if you can see all the hair and like built up nonsense. Here's the 2328M. It's a laptop CPU you could just take out of the laptop, I guess. Now I get to reapply thermal paste, stick it all back together, and hope it works. Now, I know this isn't a capable machine by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not as bad as you think. From my experience, basically any Intel chip that isn't a Pentium is still enough to get by with, and this is because of hyperthreading. Our 2328M comes with 2 cores running at 2.2 GHz, but thanks to hyperthreading, the core count is effectively doubled with its 4 threads. Additionally, the HD 3000 graphics supports DirectX 11, an API that is still commonly used in many games. This means that, hypothetically, we can still at least start most games out there. In terms of hardware, the HD 3000 has 96 shading units, 12 texture mapping units, 2 render output units, and 12 execution units. It also has a base clock of 350 MHz that can boost up to 1 GHz. But don't worry, it gets worse. Because it is an integrated graphics processor, it shares its video memory with the system's memory, and given that we only have 4GB of RAM and we're running Windows 10, it's not going to have much to work with. On the bright side, it does support up to 8GB of RAM, so you could easily increase the performance for less than $30. I would do that, but YouTube has yet to pay me. So please subscribe, it does wonders for the algorithm. Also, because it is an iGPU, you can't really overclock it. I've heard of some people being able to do so by using Intel Extreme Tuning Utility, but when I downloaded it, it said that my hardware was incompatible. I also tried using MSI Afterburner, but it wouldn't let me change the clock speeds. If you know how to overclock these integrated graphics, then let me know in the comments below. I want to try it out. And that's all the prep work done. Without further ado, let's see how it performs. First up, I ran Windows. I tried installing Windows 7 and 8, but for some reason only 10 would work. I would have preferred 7 because it works about the same and is much lighter on the system, but honestly, Windows 10 didn't run bad at all. It does take a good 10 minutes to warm up after booting, but it's a pretty smooth experience. I was able to install games and multiple softwares at the same time, and it never really slowed down. I mean, it's not flawless, but it's more than usable, and considering its age, I'm impressed. The first actual game I ran was Half-Life 2. The maximum resolution supported by the screen is 1366 by 768, not the full HD I was hoping for, but I doubt the HD 3000 is capable of much more. Using the high settings, I ran around for a bit, shot some enemies, and got an average frame rate of 38 FPS. Not as high as I would have liked considering the game's age, but with 4GB of RAM, you can't expect much. Next up was CSGO, which ran oddly. With the low settings and a resolution of 1280 by 800, Steam was reporting a frame rate of about 30 FPS. And yeah, that was correct, but the game kept freezing and was unplayable. I dropped the resolution down to 640 by 480 and didn't see a change in reported frame rate or freezing. I'm guessing this was due to a bottleneck created by the low system memory, which the integrated graphics and CPU were likely fighting over. Throw in another 2 to 4 gigs and the game should run just fine. You guys probably haven't heard of this game, but I have a friend who loves it. It's called King of Crabs, and it's a battle royale style crab fighting game. The only graphic settings you can change is the resolution, which I set to the lowest, which was 1024 by 768. It didn't really run well, and got an average frame rate of 14 FPS. However, because it is a very slow paced game, I mean crabs can't crawl very fast, it didn't feel unplayable. So I guess if you wanted to, you could run this game. I'd recommend it. Here's an actually popular game, Team Fortress 2. Released by Valve in 2007, I've played surprisingly little of this game. This time around, I ran it with the lowest settings and a resolution of 1280 by 800, and it ran well. I only played one round, so it could vary from map to map, but the HD 3000 ended up getting an average frame rate of 40 FPS. It was playable, it didn't stutter, and overall was a great experience. Sticking with another Valve title, we have Portal 2, released in 2011. In 1366 by 768, it managed to get an average frame rate of 40 FPS. That's about what I expected. I mean, the game isn't too hard to run, but considering how underpowered the HD 3000 is, I'd say it did a pretty good job. The last game was one I haven't tested before, Critical Annihilation. You basically just go through levels with intensifying waves of enemies and have to fend them off. I turned everything down to the lowest settings in a resolution of 1280 by 720, and after a few minutes got an average frame rate of 20 FPS. That's not really great, but like King of Crabs, it's not a very fast-paced game, so it still felt playable. Overall, I'd say it did well. And that just about sums up the benchmarks. So, overall, it doesn't seem like you can really play games on the Intel HD 3000. I mean, you can kind of play some low-end or older titles, but it can't even run CSGO. You know, I really had hope for this iGPU. It was paired with a not completely useless processor, so I figured it could be able to at least play some games. But I really think that the lack of system memory bogged down performance. In conclusion, it's not really aged well. I mean, you can run older games, but when I tried starting titles like Valorant or GTA 5, I was met with an error, or the game just immediately crashing. I expected those titles to work given the chip's support for DirectX 11, but for some reason they didn't. Also, on a side note, but I actually broke the laptop. I filmed a bit of me taking it apart and putting it back together after the benchmarks were completed, and now it doesn't turn back on. But I still wanted to sell it off, so hopefully I can get it working again. Oh, and I didn't mention this earlier, but I was using the latest HD 3000 drivers from Intel. I'm not sure if it would have made a difference if I hadn't updated them, but it's something worth mentioning. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider leaving a like or subscribing because it genuinely helps me out. If you want to join the community, there's a link to the official Jane Knight Discord server in the description, alongside a few donation methods that directly support the channel. If you have any questions or related comments, then leave them below and I'll be sure to respond to it. That's about it. Have a great day. Bye.